wasted, wasted. Hey, hey, hell is what you make.
LG Cinema 3D Super Tournament.
Bounce, bounce. Come on, baby. Bounce, bounce. Come on, baby. I don't care about a thing. As long as
Alright
you
guys,
get
welcome back to the LG Cinema 3D GSL Super Tournament. I am Wolf, and joined with me are two Dark Templar. They're actually going to become an Archon later on tonight after the cast. They've told me so. Now, I wanted to make a little announcement for those of you guys who use mobile phones. The GSL has, on the gomtv.net website, if you go to m.gomtv.net, actually, I found out about this right before the cast. If you go there on your mobile phone, you can watch VODs, as long as you paid for your premium ticket. Go there. Check it out. m.gomtv.net. You can watch your VODs. You can look up all the results. There's like a calendar there. It's like the TL calendar, except it's just only GomTV events, and you just look at everything, and it's awesome, and I definitely recommend going there. But first up, we're going to have Huck versus Polt today. I'm pretty excited about that match. But remember, later on we've got Nada, so those are, of course, the highlight matches of tonight. Can't forget the other players, like the Zenex players. But we are going to have Huck versus Polt. First up, Huck told me in the makeup room that he was feeling pretty confident about today's matches. He wasn't nervous at all. And we're going to take a look at the results from yesterday's matches actually really quick here. Startail Ace was 2-0'd by Marine King after Marine King held the first game quite nicely. Leenock Foyu takes out Clyde 2-0. Slayer's Alicia just barely edges out Beyond in a pretty close series there. And Maka Prime 2-0's SC Foyu in quite a surprising series. SC I thought was the better player there, but Maka really showing us some awesome stuff. Today's matches, we have Polt Prime versus Huck, as I said. Zenex Line versus Zenex Kirix. Startail's Virus versus OGS Nada. OGS Top versus Choya Foyu. So just one mirror match in there today. Also a team mirror match for Zenex versus Zenex. Actually, I take it back. Virus versus Nada is also a mirror match. What am I saying? It's just that Nada is so different than everyone else. It doesn't feel like a mirror. It's like a different kind of Terran. He's his own separate race. He's the fourth race of StarCraft 2. A lot of people talk about the Xel'Naga, but they should be talking about Nada. So those are today's matches. Now, I'm really kind of curious to see how today's match between Polt and Huck turns out. I told Huck, you know, I've heard stories. I don't watch Huck stream that much, but I do watch it every now and then, and I've seen him play Polt, and he's lost to Polt on the ladder a lot, and I've heard people talking about how Polt has been beating Huck on the ladder a lot. So I asked him about that. How do you feel about losing to him on the ladder a lot of the time? And he said, well, ladder's different. And I said, it's very true. Ladder is very different from actual tournament play. The GSL, you're sitting in your player booth, you're concentrated, you're focused, everything comes down to this moment. Your PVT at that moment gets honed, and so ladder is obviously a different beast. And Huck said he feels confident, so I'm really interested to see what kind of builds he's got planned for today. I'm sure he's practiced a lot of specific builds against Polt. Now, Polt is one of those players who likes to do timing attacks, and he likes to stick with two bases. He doesn't often take a third base or really transition to a later game. That's just kind of Polt's style, as you guys have seen. And a lot of Prime players are like that, not all of them, of course. Marine King, for example, definitely likes to go into the later game. But let's take a look at our players. Here is Polt Prime himself. You can see his GSL ranking is 19th, which is actually pretty high, given that Polt hasn't had the best results overall. But look at him, he's been in Code S for forever, ever since Code S has been introduced. In the first two seasons of Code S, he actually had a chance of going down, but he's managed to stick through. Didn't lose on the up and down matches. Then made it to the round of 16 in May, so he's of course still in Code S currently. There's the man himself, wearing his Prime jacket. Saw him come into the studio today, and he didn't really talk to anyone, just went right into his booth, got ready, got focused. He's a force to be reckoned with. He's improved a lot recently. I think he was kind of lackluster in the past, but I think he's getting better slowly over time. You know, he had a little bit of a slump, but his opponent, someone you all know and love, you may have heard of this guy. He is Chris LaRanger, otherwise known as Liquid Huck. Loranger, I've been told by our producers how you actually pronounce it, because he's Canadian and sometimes there's some French, you know, influence in Canada. Actually, as far as I'm told, Huck is, I was told once that Huck is American, but he lived in Canada, so I don't know exactly his heritage, but anyways, there he is. His results kind of speak for themselves. He hasn't been in the GSL as long as some other players, and his results aren't quite as good as some of those other players as well, but he's definitely been improving. Since getting to Korea, he's improved drastically. He's once basically the head of the ladder in North America and did extremely well in the ladder and in North American tournaments, then joined the Team Liquid, came over here and has been training really hard, and his improvement has really shown. So I'm really proud of Huck. Been following him for a long time. Now here's some more results of these guys, some more info. Now recently, Polt has been crushing the Protosses. He's 4-0 right now against the Protosses he's faced. He hasn't faced, you know, crazy Protosses, although he did face MC and 2-0'd MC, but I think that was a little bit of an unusual situation. MC played a little bit overconfident, but you can't knock it. I mean, he beat MC. That's a pretty big deal. Now, recently versus Terran, we haven't seen that many games from Huck. He's at 50%, winning one game versus MVP and losing one game to MVP as well. So, as far as I could see anyway. There may be more stuff cut off my screen because that tends to happen. But producers are telling me he won against yeah, just don't worry about it, guys. I'm sorry. Some of that stuff gets cut off. I try to read it all because I want to give you guys all the info, but I can't see it. So set 1 is going to be on Crevasse, set 2 is going to be on Zelnag Caverns, and set 3 will be on Dual Sight. Polt eliminated Terminus Re, and like I said, he doesn't really like to play long games. He doesn't like to play 3-basing, 4-basing games, so it makes sense for him to eliminate a map like Terminus Re, where inevitably it may reach the late game, and if you're not comfortable, you're not confident playing in that late game kind of setup, it's a map you might want to eliminate. Huck eliminated Zelnag Fortress, which I find really interesting. The rush distance on that map is pretty small, so that may be why, if you may want to play a longer macro-type style. That's the only real reason I could see that someone would want to eliminate that kind of map. The architecture is pretty plain, it's very wide open. Good for pros, good for Terrans, pretty even, I'd say. So the map is loading now. Who's going to take game 1? Will it be the Korean Polt, or will it be the foreigner Huck? We'll see in just a second.
Polt Prime Week versus Liquid Huck.
Alright, down here in the bottom left, our red Terran player, a member of the Team Prime, has been doing really well versus Protoss recently. He is...
Polt Prime Week.
His opponent, a foreigner from Canada, or so I'm told. A very top Protoss indeed he is.
Liquid Huck.
Of course, Huck is on the Team Liquid. If you go to teamliquid.net, for those of you guys who have never visited that website before, I don't know why you haven't, because you should. It's actually one of the best foreign websites for StarCraft 1 and StarCraft 2, if not the best. It's got a ton of good info there, a lot of info on the calendar, all sorts of events you can find there. You can post in the forums, find out what other people are talking about. It's a great site. Definitely recommend checking it out if you haven't already, although there's probably like 2 of you. Polt says, wait! Calling after Marine King Prime and Maka. I'm pretty sure he wants to catch up with his teammates who have advanced to the round of 16. He wants to join them. And it looks like Huck is going to go for a 15 Nexus, as you guys see. Now on Crevasse, that's not uncommon. It's a very, very easy expansion to take. It's a backdoor expansion, meaning you can take it and your opponent can't attack you with ground forces. There's no way for him to get there unless he walks all the way through your main, which is relatively easily defended, especially if you have got that ramp set up properly. Now, Polt is going to be going for a fast command center himself, but he has to get that barracks first. Wants to get the orbital command up. There are a lot of ways you can die to a Protoss if he does almost anything if you go CC first. So going CC first versus Protoss is very risky. You do see it every now and then, but it's much safer to get that barracks up, and plus, you get those mules down when you make the barracks, and it ends up being worth it, despite the fact that you may not have that command center up just as quickly. You wouldn't really have as many SCVs as you would need to saturate it quite yet, so it's pretty good timing for that. There's the command. So the real strength of the Nexus first is that you get twice as many chrono boosts to get as many probes out as you can, so it really increases your probe production. And then your saturation, of course, comes into play as well. Huck taking that gas ASAP, wants to get his gas going. Look at that. Those probes lining up, getting ready to send their gas to that new Nexus. There goes the Cybernetics core down. So Huck actually has decided to take that gas. Used to be a high-yield gas, but is no longer on this map. Huck may not know that, but pretty sure he does. I think he just wants to take that gas first. So here comes Polt Scout. He's going to run into the base, and Huck coming in at the same time is denied by some Marines. When he sees that many Marines, he's probably going to realize most likely you went for a fast command center. It's pretty common to see on this map. Seeing anything else would be very unusual. Now Polt sees his opponent went for a Nexus first. He's also going to see that the Cybernex Core has just finished this. SCV is going to be able to stay alive a little bit longer. He's seen the one gas. What he wants to do here is stick around as long as he can. Try to see if Huck takes a second or third gas. So that'll be pretty telling as to what Huck's next moves might be. Meanwhile, as you can see, Polt just kind of adding some barracks. He's added his gases. Actually, he's added, similarly to Huck, he's added one gas in his main and one gas at his backdoor expansion. I think that, as far as I know, it's not labeled as such. It used to be a rich mineral or rich gas geyser, but no longer is. So I think these players just taking the backdoor gas just because I can't notice any unusual attributes. I'm trying to check to see if they have more gas than the other ones or anything like that, but they don't. So just, you know, a stylistic choice to pick those. Nothing real significant about it, although I was trying to find out if there were. So Polt getting a very fast stim upgrade from that tech lab. He's gone up to 3 barracks. Just starting to get those SCVs out. Now it looks like Huck is placing this forward pile, wants to put on a little bit of pressure before the Marauders are out. If you control your Stalkers properly, and if your opponent doesn't have a bunker, you can do a ton of damage, but it looks like Polt is reacting, making a bunker. Does suspect that something is up. And actually, Huck's Stalker is at the Zelnaga Watchtower, so he's not even going to be able to pressure with that right now. But back at home, he has added a ton of gateways. He's going up to 6 gates, so it looks like it may be a 6-gate timing attack. And if he executes this well, Polt may be in trouble if he just sticks with the one bunker. Timing here is crucial. He wants to attack before there are a significant amount of Marauders out, and on the other hand, wants to attack before Stim is done. When Stim finishes, things get pretty hairy because stimmed units just do so much damage, especially when some of those stimmed units are inside of a bunker and, you know, they're stimming and they're not even taking really any additional damage from that stim. So Polt is going to continue to wall us off. Now Huck just going to attack with the one Stalker at the rocks. Now that's not really going to trigger Polt to freak out. It may make him realize something might be going on, but just with the one Stalker, this is nice. He's going to move down, but if Huck traps him outside, which indeed he does, traps 3 of those Marauders outside, that's pretty huge. This may trigger Huck to actually follow through with the attack immediately. Nice control by Polt, though, pulling those Marauders back so they could actually be relatively defended by the high ground. Those rocks are starting to fall, but Polt hasn't reacted quickly enough. His second bunker is just now starting. He may not be able to hold this attack. Here comes Huck. He's going to want to force field behind those units. Actually force fielding the bunker a little bit, but allowing his Zealots to come in. A nice move by Huck, and now once the bunker falls, his units are just going to rush through here. And I think Polt is going to die here. He just doesn't have enough units. There are more units warping in all the time. Stim just isn't quite done. It's almost done. Huck needs to finish that bunker off, or at least attack here just a little bit longer. As soon as a few more Zealots get in, he should be fine. Because if his opponent doesn't have enough units, even if he has Stim, it just won't be enough. There's Stim finishing up, trying to stim those Marauders. They are being targeted down by Huck one by one. So wants to take out those Marauders first because the Marines just don't do as much damage. And actually, Huck looks like he has been thwarted here, at least temporarily. He's going to maybe warp in some more units. But Polt has hold the attack. That stim timing, very, very important. If it had been just a few seconds later, he definitely would not have held it. Now, Huck hasn't really been all-in with this. I mean, it's somewhat of an all-in attack when you commit to the 6 gateways, but if you don't attack again and you just kind of back up, he's done a little bit of damage. He's kind of traded armies a little bit. Polt hasn't been able to comfortably attack behind this either, so it's not really all-in by any means. Huck is going to attack again here, though, and nice little wall-up by Polt. Huck has a lot of Zealots, but I don't think they're going to be enough. The bunker does fall, but with good micro, I think Polt should be able to hold this. Remember, he does have Stim, even bringing some SCVs out to help out as well. And as the Zealots fall, the Marauders just do so much damage to those Stalkers. And it looks like Polt is going to hold this. Now, that second attack, Huck lost a lot more than he did damage with, so he's actually going to be in trouble. If this attack doesn't work, like I said, he's going to be in a lot of trouble. He's being a little bit hesitant here, wants to move up, trying to target down some of those SCVs. The SCVs kind of set to block the ramp there, and with the AI, it gets a little funny when you have those SCVs blocking. Huck's units will not attack them automatically, so they just kind of bump into the SCVs. So back at home, Huck actually is starting to transition a little bit, so he's not going to go, or at least he thinks he's going to try a transition. It's going to be very difficult to do, so he has added a Twilight Council as well as a Forge. Now, luckily for Huck, Polt hasn't been teching. He just added 2 more barracks, so he's gone up to 5 barracks. He's just now starting his factory at the front of his base, as you get a shot of now. So ordinarily when you hold an attack like this, you've already got your factory up, your starports kind of finishing up, and then you start getting those medevacs out. And then your opponent gets in a lot of trouble because he doesn't have really those armor upgrades yet. He doesn't have the charge upgrade, and you've got those medevacs coming out, and it gets really, really scary. But since Polt added 2 barracks, just because he thought Huck was going to go completely all in with the attack, he's actually not as ahead as he could have been, let's say. So Huck going to take a third base, pretty smart. He's got still a sizable army and somewhat of a map control position. I think he's hoping for the best that maybe Polt doesn't have his dropships yet. Maybe I can use this map control with the units I have out already, get those charge upgrades. He's got charge on the way, he's got +1 armor on the way. As he gets those upgrades up, he'll kind of be able to control the center of the map. It'll be easier for him to hold that third base, although Polt does see it, so that may trigger him to get a little bit aggressive, because he also saw the entirety of Huck's army, which is actually pretty small right now compared to Polt's. In fact, give you guys a cost analysis of that. Actually, is there? Yeah, it's still possible. Polt's army, cost-wise, is a little bit smaller than Huck's. I checked that out on my little screen over here. I thought Polt had somewhat of a larger army, but here's the thing. That reactor is done, that starport is done. When those medevacs get out, if you don't have good armor upgrades, you don't get that AoE out pretty soon, suddenly your army just becomes less and less cost efficient. That Zealot is going to take control of the Zelnaga Watchtower, that SCV on the fringe of the line of sight blocker. Polt going to get over here with this factory, take out that pylon using the factory for vision. Now remember, factories are good for scouting, but also for tanking damage. It's a very underused thing, but starting to be used a little bit more in main armies. It happens to be on ladder. I get so mad when my stalkers are shooting at the factory. I'm like, why are you doing that? I didn't tell you to do that. I want you to shoot at the marauders, but the factory is there, and the stalkers are just shooting at the factory because it's in range where the marauders aren't. So instead of moving forward and getting closer to those marauders so they can shoot at, the stalkers are just like, I'll shoot at this factory. The factory seems to be a big threat. So that Zealot has been spotted. Fortunately, is taken out. Now, right now, supply-wise, Huck is in the lead. Remember, a lot of that is in probes, though, because he did take that third nexus, so he's committed a lot to that. He's got his forces split up. Mostly his Zealots outside of his base. In his base, he's got mostly Stalkers, because he wants to defend any possible drops. Now, Polt is going to take a third base. As you guys probably noticed, he has been making that command center. So he's going to pressure here as he takes that third base. Now, what he wants to do is at least kill the Nexus. If he can kill the Nexus with his attack and back up, he'll be in great shape. So that's kind of his objective. But on the other hand, Huck has a pretty scary army. He may want to try to avoid it using those dropships. Now, yeah, Polt realizes that army is maybe too big. Oh, he may have wanted to attack there once all the Zealots used their charge on that one unit. Something Process may want to get in the habit of in the future. I've talked to a few Process about turning charge off as autocast is something a few Process have started to do. Because when you have charge set to autocast and all of your Zealots charge at one unit, then your opponent attacks, you're like, well, that charge ended up being quite useless in that fight because all my Zealots already charged. So Huck is starting to pull ahead in the supply a little bit. His units upgrades are getting pretty intense. He's got +2 on the way. It's almost done. Oh, Huck not having his Stalkers there. Can't really commit to attacking. Does lose a few Zealots. Polt playing a pretty good game, I have to say. Just being very aggressive with these Marauders. Not really engaging where he doesn't have to. You know, his objective there, I think, was try to snipe a tech structure with a dropship or maybe sneak a dropship into the main, pull the forces back, then attack the Nexus. Some ghosts there coming out for Polt. So here's kind of the state of the game we've got here. We've got Huck with a very large army, a very scary army that Polt doesn't want to engage, which is normally the opposite scenario when you do a 6-gate, and it doesn't really work out for you. Now Huck actually going to come around here behind the army. He may want to target down that command center, but looks like he actually just wants to attack the army straight on. He's attacking up a ramp, though, and now those force fields look like they're good, but they actually are going to start to hurt Huck a little bit as the units in front of them die. But Huck has just such a large army. Remember, he does have +2, plus Guardian Shield that's really cutting through these forces, and actually, Polt's starting to lose a lot here, but as the Zealots fall, the Marauders just do so well against Stalkers. Huck losing a huge portion of his army. That fight could have gone a lot better for him. I think if he didn't use those force fields or use them a little bit differently, could have gone better. Now Huck is researching +3 armor back at home, trying to get that Psystorm out. The Psystorm, though, not going to be done anywhere near the time he wants it to be if Polt tries to attack here again, which it looks like he is preparing to do. Remember, he has a few ghosts in there as well. They've got quite a bit of energy stored up. So here's kind of the thing right now. Polt's got a larger army. Huck's got some better upgrades, but he just doesn't have the army to use them with. And with a Protoss army, you've got to have just a good balance of Zealots and Stalkers, because if you have only Zealots, the Marauders will cut you forever. You have to have some Stalkers mixed in there, but if you have too many Stalkers, then the Marauders will just crush you, so you have to have a good balance. So Huck's trying to regain that balance. He lost a lot more Zealots than I think he wanted to. Some High Templar out, but remember, Storm isn't quite done. He loses one of the Templar. He's going to lose a second one. Nice job. Notice Polt not even using any EMPs yet, targeting down the Templar where he can. Actually, he doesn't have quite enough energy for EMPs, it does look. Some Ghosts getting out there, sniping a High Templar. Huck trying to chase those Ghosts, does kill one, but loses some Stalkers in the process. Now, as you guys can see, there are mostly Zealots here, so if Polt just avoids those, he should be fine, but the Zealots getting a pretty good surround. Polt does get the next pretty huge victory. And now the Marauders just do so much DPS, not actually controlling them very well. So Huck can sort of come in here and catch up a little bit with those Marauders. The Marauders starting to get a little bit low on health. The Zealots just taking so much damage because they do have +2 armor. But Polt does win the day. Does have a small army left. He's got most of his medevacs left. They look kind of silly just overshadowing the army. Huck gonna have to cancel that Nexus again. Now, Polt on 3 bases to Huck's just 2. Huck does have Psy Storm, but he doesn't have enough energy to use it just yet. Ghost running forward here, trying to snipe some of those Templar. He's going to sacrifice those Ghosts. His Marauders, though, are coming up here. Huck forced to retreat again. Now, this is not even all of Polt's army, so even if Huck holds this, there's a lot more waiting for him. It looks like Polt is just going to sack this army, killing as many units as he can. Not microing the best as he could have been, but doing a pretty good job. And Polt doing, I'd say, a pretty good job of controlling the map. After that 6 gate didn't work out, Huck having a larger army and Polt just kind of controlling the map, slowing down Huck's tech. And that one attack that Huck did there at the last minute, didn't do it properly. I think he should have tried to hit the command center and then back away. I mean, he's barely holding this tiny army of Polt, but Polt has another huge army. He's just streaming across the map, and eventually it will get here. And Huck has to GG. GG, Polt takes game 1. There's a shot of the man himself. I think he's looking at himself right now just based on his little sigh of relief that you saw. I think he's thinking, all right, well, that was pretty scary. There were 2 attacks, so they just narrowly held off. If Huck had engaged a little bit better, a little bit faster, it might have been in trouble. Now, the first time Huck attacked, it was a good attack. Maybe he should have backed off a little bit earlier. But 6 gate can be an all-in only if you make it 1. You can make it a pressure move, slow down your opponent's tech. If you slow down your opponent's tech, that's a good thing. And then if you slow it down, you know, your tech slowed down a little bit, so it kind of comes out to an even trade. Now, the last attack Huck did, he had his army in a great spot, and he made a bad decision. He was like, maybe I have enough to crush this army, I'm going to try it, but it wasn't enough, and Polt had the high ground. If he had just attacked the command center and then backed away, it would have been much better. It was almost like, I wish there was an Obi-Wan telling Huck, like, I have the high ground, don't try it, like in Star Wars Episode 3. Unfortunately, though, Obi-Wan wasn't there to tell Huck. Well, sometimes even if you have Obi-Wan telling you, you still attack anyways. The countdown has started, guys. Will Polt close out the series 2-0, or will Huck tie it up? The map is Xel'Naga Caverns. We'll find out here in just a second who takes game 2 here at the GSL. Just a second. I'm in the game now. Here we go.